I mean,
Absolutely.
you have the good saying too. Is I forgot who says this, so I'm not gonna try to quote anybody on this one, but failing forward. That's ultimately what it is saying, and what you'll hear a lot. But you mentioned you embrace failure. You love it. It sounds like you love it because it enables you to grow, right? Which is great, which is
Yeah.
phenomenal. But when you're faced with it, when you're looking at failure, what is it that you do at that moment?
When I'm looking at failure, honestly, sometimes when I'm in a moment where I don't even want to call it a moment of failure, but a moment of realization and things are falling apart, I always think of like, it could be way worse than this.
Hmm.
Like it could be way, way worse than this. Because I've honestly learned a lot about my parents. As we get older, or as I get older, my parents sort of become less of my parents and more so of my mentors, per se. But I'm learning a lot about, their upbringing and what they had to deal with, in college, with family, raising me, moving around constantly. Like my mom had to find different jobs. Not only was I like going to different schools, my mom had to find different jobs. Like that's challenging.
Yeah.
So just like learning what they had to deal with, I'm like, look, man, anything I'm going through, anything, I fail at, it's not that bad. Because at the end of the day, if I didn't die from it, I didn't fail.
Eh.
That's a lesson. And that kind of brings me back to one of my favorite quotes, man, by Ernest Hemingway. And he said back in the day, this is an old quote, but he said, true nobility does not come from being better than your fellow man. True nobility comes from being better than your former self. So when I look at my past and I'm like, look, Darius, this is where you were. Like when we all first met, that was a different Darius. Yeah. I'm sure, that was
Right.
a different Francis. That was a different Ron. We were different.
Facts. Yeah.
And I think like the noble thing about that is like, we're able to look back on like, what were we doing? Like we know what we were doing, but like,
What were we
why?
doing?
And what was the outcome of that? You know what I'm saying? So just having that perspective, I don't think I look at failures dead in its eye. Like, what's up? What's good with it? It
Yeah.
ain't nothing, man.